Resident Evil 3 Remake. Definitely one of those games that's way better than people give it credit for. Seriously, if you haven't given it a shot or maybe dismissed it because it's shorter than other Resident Evil games, you're missing out. It's packed with intense moments, killer gameplay, and one of the most relentless enemies in the series. You've got Jill Valentine, who is such a badass, going through Raccoon City as it just falls apart. The whole city is basically on fire, zombies everywhere. And then you've got Nemesis. My God, Nemesis. That thing is relentless. Every time you hear him coming, that music kicks in, and it's like your heart rate just skyrockets. You think Mr. X from Resident Evil 2 was bad? This guy's next level. The thing I love about RE3 Remake is how fast-paced it is compared to some other Resident Evil games. It's way more action-heavy, and Jill feels like she's always moving, always surviving on the edge. The balance between survival and action is super well done. And there's still that classic Resident Evil inventory management, where you have to decide like, do I take more health or more ammo? I love that dilemma, because it makes every decision feel critical, especially when you've got Nemesis chasing you. And speaking of that, the combat in this game feels tight. It's satisfying when you nail those perfect dodges, and then counterattack. The dodge mechanic is probably one of the things that makes Jill feel so agile compared to Leon or Claire in RE2. You really feel like you're evolving with the gameplay. Sleeping Dogs Definitive Edition. This game is seriously underrated and deserves way more love. Imagine an open-world action game set in the bustling streets of Hong Kong, where you play as an undercover cop tangled up in the city's dangerous criminal underworld. It's like GTA, but with a unique twist that really sets it apart. And let's not forget the driving. Sleeping Dogs has some of the most fun driving mechanics out there. It's super arcadey, and you can do crazy stunts, hijack cars on the go, and even ram other cars off the road. There's something so satisfying about zooming through the city, dodging traffic, and knowing you can hop out at any time to start a fistfight. The city is alive with neon lights, crowded markets, and tons of little side activities that make it feel so authentic. You can go sing karaoke. Yes, karaoke. Try your luck at street races, or just cruise around and soak in the atmosphere. The developers did a fantastic job capturing the vibe of Hong Kong, and it's a city you actually want to explore. One of the best parts of Sleeping Dogs is the hand-to-hand combat. It's like a martial arts movie come to life. You're throwing punches, countering moves, and using your environment in the coolest ways. You can slam enemies into fish tanks, toss them off balconies, and even use random objects around you to gain the upper hand. So, if you're into action games with a great story and a city that feels alive and vibrant, Sleeping Dogs Definitive Edition is absolutely worth checking out. It Takes Two. It's easily one of the most creative co-op experiences I've ever played. From the very start, you realize that it's not your typical platformer. It's all about teamwork. Whether you're playing with a friend, partner, or even someone you just met, the whole experience becomes this shared journey that's honestly so much fun. The level design is incredible. Every single level is packed with unique mechanics that are specific to that environment. 1 minute, you're in a garden where one player's watering plants while the other's chopping through obstacles. The next, you're in a clock tower, messing with time itself. It's never repetitive because each new area throws something different at you. The gameplay just keeps evolving. One of my favorite sections was when one of us could fly on this paper airplane while the other navigated obstacles on the ground. It's all about trust and coordination. What I also really appreciate is how the game balances difficulty. It's not too hard, but it does require you to think and communicate. There were moments where my co-op partner and I would be stuck for a minute, but it always felt rewarding when we figured it out together. You're constantly learning how to rely on each other's strengths, which is such a fun way to approach co-op. Honestly, what really stands out to me about It Takes Two is just how much fun it is. I mean, you're not just playing a game, you're sharing this experience with someone else, and you're both equally important to making it through the story. Whether you're laughing at the absurd situations or getting a little competitive with the mini-games. Silent Hill 2 Remake. I've got to say, it totally nails that eerie, unsettling vibe that made the original such a classic. I mean, Silent Hill 2 is already one of the most iconic horror games out there, but this remake, it's like they took all the stuff that creeped us out back in the day and cranked it up with these incredible graphics and sound design. The foggy town of Silent Hill looks absolutely gorgeous in this remake. Well, in a terrifying, twisted way, of course. The way the fog moves, the way the shadows creep along the streets, it's so atmospheric. Walking through those empty, run-down streets, you can just feel the tension building. I caught myself hesitating before turning corners, just bracing for whatever nightmare was waiting around the bend. The monsters are just insane. Pyramid Head is back, and just as horrifying as ever. Seeing him in high definition? Yeah, it gave me chills. And the sound design makes it even worse. In the best way. You'll hear these distant, unsettling noises, and it just puts you on edge the entire time. The sound of the radio static kicking in right before a monster appears still gets me every time. What I also love is how faithful the remake is to the original, but it also adds some nice quality-of-life improvements. The controls feel smoother. The combat is a little more refined, but it still keeps that you're not some action hero vibe. Every encounter with a monster feels dangerous, like you're barely scraping by, which is exactly what you want in a horror game like this. If you're into survival horror at all, or if you loved the original, you've got to check this out. Assassin's Creed Mirage. Mirage drops you into 19th century Baghdad, and let me tell you, it's gorgeous. The city feels alive, bustling with activity, narrow streets, and towering rooftops that beg to be climbed. The attention to detail here is incredible. It's like they cracked open a history book and turned it into a vibrant, living world. If you've been a fan of the series since the early days, you'll love the gameplay here. It's all about stealth, precision, and planning. No more running into a group of enemies and fighting your way out like a tank. Mirage encourages you to think like an assassin again, sneak through crowds, blend in, climb up to a vantage point, and take your shot when the time is right. It's so satisfying when a plan comes together, and you get that perfect, clean assassination. The parkour feels so good. It's smooth, fluid, and makes navigating the city an absolute joy. There's nothing quite like sprinting across rooftops, vaulting over obstacles, and making a daring leap onto a narrow beam while a guard shouts, "Hey you!" from the street below. The freedom of movement is top tier, and it reminded me of why I fell in love with this series in the first place. The story is also a highlight. No spoilers, I promise, but it's tightly focused, and that's a good thing. After the sprawling epics of recent Assassin's Creed games, Mirage feels like a refreshing change of pace. It's more personal, more intimate, and it really leans into the assassin versus the system theme. You get to see the journey of Basim. Yes, that Basim, if you've played Valhalla. Cyberpunk 2077. I know it had a rocky start, but seriously, it's a totally different game now after all the updates. The world of Night City is just wow. I mean, if you love getting lost in a huge, neon-lit, gritty open world, this game is perfect. It feels alive, you know? The city's got this cyberpunk vibe down to a T. Dark alleys, giant holograms, futuristic cars, the whole Blade Runner kind of thing. And honestly, I love how the game doesn't shy away from showing the messier side of that world, like the clash of high-tech and low-life. V, the main character, is super customizable too. I spent way too much time tweaking my character at the start, like more than I'd care to admit. But it's fun to play with all the different builds, whether you want to go full-on hacker, cybernetic brawler, or sneaky assassin. Plus, the augmentations, dude, that's the coolest part. You can literally replace parts of your body with cybernetic enhancements. Who wouldn't want a built-in katana arm or optic implants? What's crazy is how the story can change depending on what you do. Like, the choices really feel like they matter. There was this one mission where I was trying to decide whether to help these corporate types or betray them, and man, I was stressing over it for days. I couldn't stop thinking, what if I made the wrong choice? But that's the fun of it. There's no right or wrong answer, just how you want to play it. I will say the driving can be a little wonky at times, but honestly, once you get used to it, it's not that bad. Plus, the city's so massive, it's fun just cruising around, taking in the sights. The Crew 2. This is a game that feels like it was made for anyone who's ever looked at a car, plane, or boat and thought, yeah, I could probably do some wild stuff with that. It's not just about driving. It's about the thrill of being unleashed on an enormous open-world playground and turning it into your personal motorsports festival, whether you're tearing through city streets in a hypercar, skimming over water in a speedboat, or pulling off insane aerobatics in a stunt plane. The Crew 2 doesn't just invite you to go big, it practically demands it. This game doesn't hold back when it comes to variety. One moment, you're weaving through traffic in downtown Los Angeles, and the next, you're roaring across the Mississippi River in a powerboat. And the best part? You can switch between vehicles on the fly. It's a seamless transition that adds so much personality to the experience. Want to launch off a mountain in your car, switch midair to a plane, and finish by landing in a river as a boat? The freedom here is absolutely unhinged in the best way possible. The map is massive, covering a condensed version of the United States. It's not just about the size, though. It's about how alive it feels. Highways stretch endlessly, countryside sprawls out invitingly, and cities buzz with a certain kinetic energy. Each location feels distinct, and the way the environments cater to the vehicles you're using is incredibly satisfying. Flying over the Grand Canyon or speeding across the swamps of Florida gives every type of vehicle its time to shine. The Evil Within, a game that brought some real old-school survival horror vibes, but didn't quite get the love it deserved. Honestly, this game flew under the radar for a lot of people, which is crazy because it was directed by Shinji Mikami, the guy behind Resident Evil 4. You'd think that would have guaranteed a Game of the Year contender, right? What made The Evil Within stand out was how it balanced psychological horror with intense, sometimes brutal action. The game wasn't just about jump scares, though it had plenty of those. It was about atmosphere, tension, and always keeping the player on edge. You never felt safe, which is what survival horror should be all about. And the world? Creepy, unsettling, filled with twisted, nightmarish creatures. It really felt like a descent into madness. But let's be real. The Evil Within wasn't for everyone, and that's probably why it didn't snag a Game of the Year. The difficulty was punishing at times, with limited ammo, tough enemies, and the kind of survival mechanics that could frustrate players who weren't prepared for that hardcore experience. It had this real old-school design that some players loved, but others found off-putting. People who were used to more action-focused horror games weren't always vibing with the slower, more methodical pace. The game was also pretty divisive when it came to its story. Some people thought the plot was all over the place, a little too cryptic and hard to follow, but here's the thing. If you were a fan of old-school survival horror, The Evil Within was a gem. Far Cry New Dawn. Now I know this game has had its fair share of mixed reactions, and some people wrote it off without really giving it a chance. People saw New Dawn as more of a spin-off or a standalone expansion than a full Far Cry title. It's a bit shorter, and yes, some assets are reused from Far Cry 5, which led to some feeling like Ubisoft was just rehashing content. But the thing is, New Dawn takes those familiar elements and mixes them up with new mechanics that are actually a blast to play. They introduced this whole light RPG system where enemies have different levels, and you can craft and upgrade weapons to take them down. It's a bit of a departure for Far Cry, but it's fun. And the weapon upgrades add this cool progression element that feels rewarding as you build up your gear. Another cool feature in Far Cry New Dawn is the expeditions. These are missions that take you out of Hope County to different locations around the U.S., like a deserted amusement park or an aircraft carrier, to scavenge resources. It's such a cool way to break up the gameplay, and it really gives you the sense that the world outside Hope County is also chaotic and dangerous. These missions add variety and give you a chance to explore different environments, which is something you don't typically get in a single location Far Cry game. And let's not overlook that classic Far Cry chaos. New Dawn is packed with wild moments. 1 minute you're sneaking through enemy territory, and the next you're riding a saw blade shooting crossbow. The Witcher 3. Blood and Wine. This expansion feels like a full-blown adventure of its own. The moment you step foot here, you'll notice how vibrant and distinct the region is, filled with rolling vineyards, colorful towns, and plenty of mystery lurking beneath the surface. Combat remains razor-sharp and strategic, with plenty of opportunities to test out different builds, potions, and tactics. The enemies in Toussaint are as unique as the land itself, with new creatures and foes that challenge your skills in fresh ways. Whether you're engaging in swordplay, using signs to control the battlefield, or preparing for a fight with meticulous planning, every encounter feels satisfying. Exploration in Blood and Wine is an absolute highlight. Toussaint is filled with hidden treasures, intriguing side quests, and areas that beg to be explored. From quaint villages to ominous ruins, each location feels handcrafted and packed with detail. Taking the time to wander off the beaten path often leads to some of the game's most memorable moments, and the world rewards curiosity at every turn. One of the standout features here is the attention to customization. Blood and Wine introduces new armor sets, upgrades, and even a personal vineyard that you can enhance. It's a small touch, but it adds a layer of connection to the world. Toussaint is a land that feels alive, brimming with charm, danger, and opportunities to immerse yourself in its world. It's the kind of expansion that reminds you why The Witcher 3 is considered one of the best RPGs ever made. CLAIR OBSCUR 33. This is an intricate and deeply atmospheric puzzle-adventure game that revolves around uncovering the truth. In a world shrouded in mystery and contrast, the game leans heavily into its mechanics, offering a blend of clever problem-solving and exploration that feels distinctly tailored for those who appreciate a cerebral challenge. It's a space where every element exists for a reason, demanding your attention to detail and rewarding your curiosity. Every area you explore challenges your perception, requiring you to think about space and perspective in ways that few other games dare to explore. The interplay of light and darkness serves as the foundation for its puzzles, turning even the simplest task into a layered and engaging experience. The puzzles here are methodically crafted, each one designed to push you just enough to keep you invested without ever feeling insurmountable. They rely on logic and experimentation, encouraging you to test boundaries and think creatively, whether it's manipulating objects, redirecting beams of light, or using shadows to your advantage. The game keeps its mechanics fresh by constantly introducing subtle twists that evolve as you progress. Exploration is a key part of the experience. CLAIR OBSCUR invites you to pay attention to every detail in your surroundings, as the world is filled with secrets waiting to be uncovered. This is not a game where you can rush from point A to point B. It rewards patience and observation. Final Fantasy XV. This game definitely got its fair share of criticism when it first launched, but honestly, it's such a gem once you dig into it. A lot of the hate stemmed from expectations, especially from longtime fans of the Final Fantasy series. People wanted it to be a certain way, and when it turned out to be a bit different, it threw everyone off. One of the big controversies was about the story and how parts of it felt, well, incomplete. A lot of fans felt like there were pieces missing, and to be fair, they're kind of right. Square Enix did add DLCs later to fill in some of the gaps, which helped a lot, but I get why people were frustrated. And then there's the combat system, which definitely divided people. It's way more action-oriented than older Final Fantasy games, which threw some fans off. Instead of the traditional turn-based style, you're zipping around the battlefield, warping in and out of combat, and timing your attacks in real time. Personally, I think it's a blast. It feels fast, intense, and once you get the hang of it, there's a real flow to the battles that's so satisfying. Plus, you get to use all these cool weapons and powers, and switching between them mid-fight keeps things exciting. I get that it's not everyone's cup of tea, but it brings a fresh energy to the series, and if you go in with an open mind, it's a lot of fun. Final Fantasy XV gives you this huge, open world to explore, and it's stunning. You're cruising around in your car, the regalia, discovering gorgeous landscapes, stopping at outposts, and finding hidden treasures along the way. WOLFENSTEIN 2: The New Colossus. Now, this is a game that doesn't hold back. From the moment you start, it's full throttle, no apologies. The story picks up right after the first one, and let me tell you, they dive straight into the madness. You've got BJ Blazkowicz, still the ultimate Nazi killing machine, but now even more battle-worn and broken, both physically and mentally. And yet, he's still got that fire. He's out for blood, but there's this deeper emotional side to him in this game that really surprised me. The gunplay is pure chaos in the best way. The weapons are so satisfying, and when you dual-wield two massive guns, it's like you're a one-man army mowing down everything in your path. The combat is fast, brutal, and it just feels good. Every shot has impact. And the enemies don't just drop. They explode into chunks when you hit them right. It's gloriously over the top, and I loved every second of it. Oh, and let's talk about the villains. Frau Engel, she's terrifying. She's not just some generic evil figure. She's genuinely unsettling, with this twisted obsession and cruelty that makes her a perfect antagonist. You really want to take her down, and that's what drives you forward. The way the game builds tension between you and her is brilliant, and every time she shows up, you know things are about to get wild. The characters are fantastic. Whether it's old friends from the Resistance or new allies you meet along the way, everyone's got their own personality, and it makes you care about them. Some scenes had me laughing, others had me really thinking. Skyrim. Where do you even start with a game like Skyrim? This game is just huge. It's one of those games that just keeps pulling you in, no matter how many times you've played it before. You boot it up thinking, I'll just play for an hour. And next thing you know, it's 3 a.m. and you're sneaking around in the Thieves Guild or fighting a dragon on top of a mountain. First off, the world. It's absolutely massive, and it feels alive, from the snowy peaks of the Throat of the World to the rolling plains of Whiterun. Every part of Skyrim feels like it has its own story to tell, and the fact that you can go anywhere, do anything, it's such a freeing experience. Like, if you see a mountain in the distance, you can actually go there, and you never know what's going to happen along the way. Maybe you run into a giant, or you stumble upon some hidden cave with its own little quest line. It's just endless discovery. The combat, well, it's classic Skyrim. It's not about being super fancy or fast-paced, but it's about choice. You want to swing a giant axe? Go for it. Prefer sneaking around with a bow or dual-wielding daggers? Totally doable. Or maybe you want to go full wizard, summoning flames and raising the dead. Whatever your style, the game lets you play exactly how you want. And speaking of choice, the quests are insane. Sure, there's the main story about you being the Dragonborn with the whole saving the world thing. But honestly, the side quests are where it's at. You can get caught up joining the Dark Brotherhood and becoming an assassin, or leading the companions and becoming a werewolf. Persona 5 Royal. Imagine a mix of an anime-inspired high school life simulator, a classic RPG, and a supernatural heist adventure. And somehow, this game pulls it all off beautifully. What makes Persona 5 Royal special is its ability to balance two very different worlds. Your everyday life as a high school student, and your alter ego as a phantom thief. By day, you're living in Tokyo, going to school, hanging out with friends, working part-time jobs, and even studying. Yes, there are in-game quizzes, but by night, you're diving into these surreal, mind-bending dungeons called palaces to steal the twisted desires of villains and, save the world. Another thing that sets Persona 5 Royal apart is the combat. It's turn-based, but with a twist that makes every encounter feel dynamic. And you get to summon powerful creatures called personas to aid you in battle. It's flashy, fast, and incredibly satisfying when you manage to exploit enemy weaknesses and pull off a team combo. Plus, Royal adds even more personas and abilities to the mix, which just makes the whole thing even more engaging. And if you're wondering what makes Persona 5 Royal different from the original Persona 5, it's like getting an expanded director's cut. You get extra story content, new characters, an additional semester at school, and a brand new palace. These additions don't just feel like bonus content, but more like necessary pieces that deepen the story and characters even further. Far Cry 6. This is a game that knows exactly what it's doing, dropping you into a chaotic, sprawling open world filled with action, surprises, and an arsenal of wild tools to turn the odds in your favor. If you've ever wanted to feel like an unstoppable force while exploring an island paradise that's teetering on the edge of revolution, this game is your playground. The first thing that hits you about Far Cry 6 is how alive Yara feels. It's not just a setting. It's a vibrant, untamed world full of things waiting to explode, both literally and figuratively. Every road, village, jungle, and coastline feels like it's daring you to take charge. You'll find yourself tearing through enemy checkpoints, sneaking through lush forests, and stumbling into random, often hilarious encounters. There's a level of unpredictability to every corner of the island that keeps you constantly engaged. The game doesn't just give you a bunch of weapons and tell you to go wild. It gives you the tools to turn Yara into your personal chaos sandbox. Guns? Sure, but why stop there? There are makeshift weapons that look like they were cobbled together by a genius with a garage full of junk. Flamethrowers, disc launchers, explosive gadgets. Each one feels like it was designed to make you cackle, while causing maximum destruction. Vehicles are a big part of the fun too. From patched-up trucks to sleek motorcycles, you're never far from something that gets your adrenaline pumping. And it doesn't stop at traditional rides. Dark Souls Remastered. This game is an undeniable classic, rebuilt to remind players why it's become a benchmark for challenging, rewarding gameplay. It throws you into a grim and mysterious world where every encounter, every decision, and every step feels meaningful. This isn't just a game you play, it's a test of patience, skill, and determination. Combat is at the core of Dark Souls Remastered, and it's an art form here. It's all about timing, precision, and understanding your enemies. Every swing of a sword, every block with your shield, and every dodge roll feels deliberate. The game doesn't hand you easy wins. Instead, it challenges you to learn its rhythms and grow as a player. Defeating an enemy after a tough battle feels like a genuine accomplishment, and that sense of achievement never fades, no matter how many times you experience it. Exploration is another highlight. The interconnected world is full of hidden paths, shortcuts, and secrets that reward players who pay attention to their surroundings. It's not a linear journey, and you're encouraged to venture off the beaten path. Whether you're descending into a dark and eerie cave or ascending a crumbling tower, every area feels distinct and filled with its own challenges. The game's upgrade system is as deep as the world itself. It gives you the freedom to shape your character into the fighter you want to be. Whether you prefer to wield massive swords, master powerful spells, or outmaneuver your enemies with light weapons. The Last of Us Part 2. Now, I know this game stirred up a lot of heated discussions when it dropped, but let's be real, some of the hate was totally overblown. First off, people were divided right from the start due to the story direction. Without getting into spoilers, it's safe to say that the game took some big narrative risk. Naughty Dog didn't just play it safe with this one. They were like, nah, we're going all in. And while some fans weren't ready for those changes, that's exactly what makes the game bold. It wasn't afraid to challenge your emotions and expectations, and not every game dares to do that. Also, let's not forget how incredible the gameplay and world building are. Whether or not you agree with the story choices, the game is undeniably polished. The combat is intense, the environments are stunning, and the small details make the world feel lived in. Those aspects of the game were universally praised. And for good reason. The AI is surprisingly smart too. Enemies react to your tactics, work together, and even call out to each other by name, which makes it feel way more personal when you're in the thick of it. It adds this extra layer of immersion that's hard to ignore. Ultimately, The Last of Us 2 was unfairly hated by some, but over time, people have started to recognize its strengths. It's one of those games where, once you let go of the preconceived ideas and just take it for what it is, you realize how well crafted and powerful it is. I think a lot of the initial backlash came from the hype and expectations. People had this picture-perfect idea of what a sequel should be. Nightingale. Without giving too much away, Nightingale is set in an alternate Victorian-inspired universe where portals connect you to countless magical realms. These aren't just ordinary portals either. Each one opens up a unique, handcrafted world full of surprises. Whether it's dense forests, eerie swamps, or towering mountains, every realm feels like a whole new adventure waiting to happen. At its heart, Nightingale is a survival game. But it's so much more than that. Sure, you'll be gathering resources, crafting tools, and building shelters, but it never feels repetitive or grindy. The game constantly rewards your curiosity. Wander off the beaten path, and you might stumble upon a hidden ruin, a bizarre creature, or a resource you didn't even know existed. You'll face all kinds of strange and otherworldly beings, from towering giants to mischievous fairies. Each encounter feels unique, and sometimes running is just as valid an option as fighting. There's this constant sense of tension and wonder as you explore, never quite knowing what's around the next corner. One of the coolest aspects of the game is the crafting system. It's deep, but not overwhelming, which is a hard balance to strike. You can craft everything from tools and weapons to elaborate structures. And let me tell you, building in this game is a treat. The structures you can create aren't just functional. They're gorgeous. Whether you're putting together a humble cabin or a sprawling Victorian estate, it always feels satisfying and personal. Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth. If you're familiar with the Yakuza series, you already know you're in for something big, bold, and just a little over the top. This game picks up with our guy, Ichiban Kasuga, who's back for another round of absolute chaos, heartwarming moments, and more twists than you can count. And let me tell you, if you're ready for a journey that's equal parts action, drama, and pure hilarity, this one's going to hit the spot. What makes Infinite Wealth stand out is how it blends a serious story with some of the funniest, most bizarre side activities you'll ever see. One minute, you're dealing with intense emotional scenes. The next, you're wrapped up in a totally ridiculous minigame, and you're laughing because it's so outrageous. It's like they managed to throw in every wild idea they could think of. And somehow it all works. And with Ichiban leading the way, every moment feels fresh and unpredictable. Now, the turn-based combat, it's back, and better than ever. The strategy side of things adds this fun layer to every battle, and it's packed with quirky moves that only a game like a Dragon could pull off. And if you've played the previous games, you'll notice the combat's even more refined here. It's still got that signature mix of outlandish attacks and strategic depth, which makes every fight feel epic and hilarious at the same time. But beyond the action, it's really about the characters. Ichiban is one of those protagonists who's impossible not to root for. He's got this mix of loyalty, optimism, and pure heart that makes him stand out. Dead Space Remake, a game that completely revitalized a classic survival horror experience and honestly deserved a shot at Game of the Year. The original Dead Space was already a masterpiece, but the remake took it to another level, with modern graphics, tighter gameplay, and some amazing quality-of-life improvements. It was like stepping back into a nightmare, but with 4K visuals, and even more horrifying details. First off, the atmosphere in the Dead Space remake was next level. The USG Ishimura felt more alive, and dead, than ever. Every creak, every shadow, and every flickering light just added to that sense of dread. The developers did an incredible job preserving what made the original so terrifying, while also cranking up the immersion. They rebuilt the whole game from the ground up, and it showed in how polished the environments were. The lighting alone made certain sections feel way scarier than before, like you're always one step away from something terrible. But here's the thing. While the Dead Space remake was stunning and faithful to its source material, some people argued that it didn't do enough to push the genre forward, which is probably why it didn't take home the Game of the Year trophy. It was a fantastic remake, but it stayed close to the original's formula, which, for some, felt more like a tribute than a bold new experience. But here's the bottom line. The Dead Space remake did exactly what it set out to do, remind us why this franchise is one of the best in survival horror. The fact that it didn't win Game of the Year doesn't take away from the fact that it was one of the most polished and terrifying games of 2023. Hitman World of Assassination, a game where the phrase, plan your work your plan, is both your mantra and your challenge. You're not just playing as Agent 47, you become the ultimate bald-headed assassin, blending into environments like a shadow while orchestrating some of the most ingenious takedowns you can dream up. You're thrust into a series of sprawling, intricately designed locations where your goal is to eliminate high-value targets. Sounds simple, right? Wrong. The brilliance of Hitman lies in the how. Sure, you can go in guns blazing, but where's the fun in that? This game dares you to be patient, to observe, and to use your imagination. It's about transforming everyday objects into tools of chaos, turning a muffin into a weapon or a chandelier into your silent accomplice. Each mission gives you dozens of ways to accomplish your goal, and none of them are wrong. Want to disguise yourself as a waiter and poison someone's drink? Go for it. Feel like triggering a Rube Goldberg chain reaction of destruction? Absolutely. Prefer to be the ghost who no one ever saw coming? That's valid too. The sheer number of possibilities is overwhelming, in the best way possible. But don't think this is all smooth sailing. Hitman loves to keep you on your toes. Plans go wrong. Guards get suspicious. NPCs wander into places they absolutely shouldn't be. And that's where the game really shines, when you're forced to improvise. Oh, and the replayability? Insane. Greedfall. It's this cool mix of fantasy and colonialism. I feel like it flew under the radar for a lot of people. But once you dive in, it's hard to stop. You know that feeling when a game has such a rich world, and you're like, why didn't I hear more about this? That's Greedfall for me. The first thing that really struck me was the setting. It's got this new world exploration feel, but instead of America or something, you've got this mysterious island called Tir-Fadi, filled with monsters and these indigenous tribes who have their own deep culture. Honestly, I think the world building is one of the game's strongest points. Like, there's this constant sense of discovery, and every place feels like it's hiding a secret or two. And the story. It's a classic RPG in the sense that your choices really shape the narrative. I found myself agonizing over some of the decisions, like, do I side with the natives or the colonial factions? Do I negotiate or fight? It really makes you think about the consequences, which I appreciate. It's not just black and white morality either. It's all these shades of gray. I think that's why it kept me hooked. It's a game that rewards you for paying attention to details and thinking about your choices. The companions are super well done too. I love how they've got their own backstories and personal quests, and the interactions with them feel meaningful. I actually cared about what happened to them, which doesn't always happen in RPGs, So yeah, if you're into RPGs with a bit of a twist, Greedfall is definitely worth checking out. Evil West. If you're into games that let you feel like a total badass while fighting supernatural creatures, this one's for you. It's like Red Dead Redemption meets Van Helsing, but with way more punch. First off, the combat is brutal. You've got this mix of melee and ranged weapons that keeps things interesting the entire time. One moment, you're blasting vampires with a rifle, and the next, you're smashing them into pieces with an electrified gauntlet. The flow of switching between weapons and powers feels so natural. I loved how I never felt stuck using one method. The game just encourages you to get creative with the chaos. The story really surprised me too. I went in expecting just some fun, mindless action, but the narrative actually hooked me. You play as Jesse Rentier, this tough-as-nails cowboy working for a secret monster hunting institute, and the whole Wild West meets horror vibe is so well done. It's not Shakespeare, but it fits the tone perfectly. There's this balance of grit and humor in the dialogue that kept me engaged the whole way through. It doesn't take itself too seriously, but it's not just a throwaway plot either. I also love that they didn't overcomplicate things with RPG elements. There are upgrades, sure, but they don't slow down the action. You can upgrade your weapons and skills as you go, but it's straightforward and doesn't bog you down with too many choices. It's more about fine-tuning how you want to fight, which really lets you focus on the combat and the carnage. The Callisto Protocol. It's from Glenn Schofield, one of the co-creators of Dead Space, so if you know that series, you can expect a similar intensity here, with a unique twist that keeps things fresh. One of the things I love about this game is how it creates tension. It's not just jump scares, though there are a few really effective ones. It's that constant feeling of dread. You're almost always low on ammo and health, so every encounter with the twisted, mutated inmates of this prison feels like a struggle to survive. The combat is brutal and up close, forcing you to really get in there and make every swing count. It's not your typical action game where you can just spray bullets and move on. Here, you're scraping by with whatever resources you can find, and it adds so much to the immersion and intensity. The combat is visceral. There's this raw, almost primal feel to it. The melee system in particular is pretty unique for a horror game. You actually have to get in close to bash these creatures, and it's terrifying in the best way. You're not just standing back with a gun, you're practically fighting for your life in every encounter, which makes the experience that much more intense. What really stands out, though, is how the game creates this balance between horror and sci-fi mystery. Sure, you're dealing with terrifying creatures and survival, but there's also this big, intriguing story underneath it all. Why did everything go wrong on Callisto? What's causing these transformations? The game does a great job of feeding you bits and pieces of the narrative as you go. HELLBLADE: Senua's Sacrifice. I can honestly say, it's unlike anything I've played before. Right from the beginning, it sets a tone that's dark, emotional, and deeply immersive. You can tell it's more than just an action-adventure game. There's a deeper story here, and it pulls you in with every step Senua takes on her journey. The story is so emotional, especially as it deals with mental health in such a powerful way. The way they portray Senua's psychosis, the voices in her head, it's also unsettling but fascinating at the same time. It's like you're constantly living inside her mind, and that really makes you connect with her. It's rare to see a game tackle such a heavy topic with so much respect and depth. And then there's the combat. It's intense, but it's not over the top. It feels personal. Like every fight is a struggle for survival. You're not just slashing through enemies for the sake of it. Each battle feels like it has weight, like Senua's fighting for something bigger. And the way the game makes you feel isolated, with those stunning landscapes that somehow feel both beautiful and haunting, it just adds to the experience. The audio design really stood out to me too. Wearing headphones made a huge difference. The voices surround you, whispering in your ear, sometimes confusing you, sometimes guiding you. It's such a smart use of sound to mess with your mind, making you question what's real. Just like Senua, I found myself genuinely tense during certain moments, not because of jump scares, but because of that constant feeling of unease. Dead Island 2. It's one of those games that after being in development for so long, you're just happy it finally exists. If you're into zombie games, this one is like a bloody sun-soaked vacation, where you can let loose and hack, slash, and smash your way through hordes of the undead. What's cool about it is that it doesn't take itself too seriously. The game knows exactly what it is, a fun, over-the-top zombie slasher set in sunny California. And sometimes that's exactly what you need. First off, the setting is great. Instead of a gloomy, post-apocalyptic wasteland, Dead Island 2 takes place in a colorful, almost absurdly beautiful version of Los Angeles. They call it Hell-A, and the contrast between the bright, glamorous world of Hollywood and the grotesque, decaying zombies is just awesome. You're running through luxury mansions, beaches, and fancy neighborhoods, all while the city crumbles around you. It's like you're on a demented version of a sightseeing tour. The zombies themselves come in all shapes and sizes, and they're not pushovers. You've got your standard walkers, but there are also faster, more aggressive types, like runners and screamers who can call for reinforcements. Some are armored, others are on fire or covered in acid, and each type forces you to adjust your tactics. It keeps you on your toes and makes the combat feel fresh. You're constantly adapting and finding new ways to take them down, whether it's by using environmental traps, setting them on fire, or just going for headshots. Detroit Become Human. It's one of those games where you're not just watching a story play out, you're actually shaping it. Your choices matter, and I mean really matter. The choices aren't always easy either. Sometimes you're like, what's the right choice here? And there's no clear answer. It's all about what you value, and that affects the relationships you build and the path you take. There's this branching storyline, so the game reacts to your choices in a way that feels organic. Each playthrough can be so different, and it's wild seeing how even small decisions can snowball into something huge later on. You play as 3 different androids, each with their own story, and the game does an amazing job of making you care about each one. You feel invested in their struggles, their choices, and what they want for their lives. The best part for me was the emotional weight. The game digs into some pretty deep themes: freedom, empathy, what it means to be human. And because it's so interactive, it really makes you think about what you do in these situations. By the end, you're not just playing a game, you're reflecting on your own beliefs and choices, which is pretty rare for a video game. And Detroit doesn't shy away from tension either. There are moments where you're genuinely on the edge of your seat, trying to make quick decisions that could totally change everything. And the stakes are high because, things can go wrong in big ways if you make a wrong call. So, yeah, Detroit Become Human is perfect if you're into games that let you dig into a story deeply, and that give you control over what happens. Horizon Burning Shores. This expansion is everything you'd hope for and more, taking Aloy's journey into an entirely new region filled with challenges, surprises, and jaw-dropping moments. Set in a beautifully untamed area that feels wild and alive. It's all about exploring, adapting, and thriving in a world that's as dangerous as it is mesmerizing. The new landscape opens up fresh opportunities for discovery, with terrains that pushed you to think differently about how you approach traversal and combat. The highlight here is the freedom to experiment with the tools and abilities you've built up throughout the main game. The enemies in Burning Shores aren't just there to look intimidating. They're designed to test your skills in exciting ways. New machine types bring unique combat dynamics, keeping you on your toes and forcing you to adapt your strategies. The world design in Burning Shores is deeply immersive, with plenty of areas that invite exploration. Whether you're scaling cliffs, diving into the depths, or navigating open spaces, there's always something fascinating to find. Hidden treasures, mysterious locations, and cleverly placed challenges make every corner of this expansion worth exploring. The variety in the terrain ensures that no 2 moments feel alike, keeping the experience fresh and engaging from start to finish. The addition of new weapons and gear is another standout feature. These aren't just upgrades, they're game changers that open up creative ways to tackle enemies and solve environmental puzzles. Warhammer Space Marine 2. Honestly, I had pretty high expectations going in, especially since I loved the first game, but this one really blew me away. I just finished it, and I'm still buzzing with adrenaline. If you're into anything Warhammer or just a fan of solid, brutal action games, this one hits all the right notes. Right from the start, I was hooked. You jump back into the boots of Captain Titus, and let me tell you, they've cranked everything up. Titus feels like an absolute force of nature, and the game really nails that power fantasy of being a space marine. Every time I smashed into a group of Tyranids, it felt like I was carving through them like a god of war. And these Tyranids are terrifying. The way they swarm you, it's a mix of pure chaos and strategic survival. Speaking of strategy, the game's combat is deeper than it looks at first. Sure, you can charge in swinging that chainsword and ripping through enemies, but you've got to think a bit too. You can't just button mash your way to victory, especially with those massive bosses. They've got these intricate patterns, so it feels like a dance between brute force and tactical moves. When I finally took down one of the bigger enemies after like 15 minutes of dodging and countering, it was such a satisfying moment. I felt like I earned that victory. And the story is more than just a mindless shooter, that's for sure. There are moments where the weight of war, the cost of being a space marine, really hit. Titus's arc feels more fleshed out this time around. He's not just a badass in power armor. The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, a game that somehow managed to take everything magical about Breath of the Wild and just amp it up to 11. Right off the bat, I've got to say the world is absolutely breathtaking. They've kept that stunning, painterly art style that's somehow both cozy and epic at the same time. You get these incredible sweeping landscapes, misty forests, hidden caves, and yes, floating islands in the sky. The verticality is on another level, and it makes exploring feel fresh and new. Climbing up mountains and discovering secret paths high above Hyrule is so rewarding. You feel like an adventurer, just setting off with nothing but curiosity as your guide. One of the best parts of Tears of the Kingdom is how it encourages creativity. It's not just about following a set path or checking things off a list. You can go wherever, tackle objectives in whatever order you like, and use all sorts of fun mechanics to solve puzzles or defeat enemies. I found myself thinking outside the box constantly. The game rewards you for being inventive, and every time you pull off some crazy solution, it's like, whoa, I actually did that. The physics, the way you interact with objects, even how you use Link's new abilities. It all feels like Nintendo wanted you to experiment and have a blast doing it. And let's talk about those new abilities. Without spoiling anything, I'll just say that Link's got some seriously cool tricks up his sleeve. These aren't just fun gimmicks. They totally change how you approach the world. Remember the excitement when you first learned to climb anything in Breath of the Wild? Death Stranding, one of the most divisive games out there. When this game dropped, it was like half the gaming community loved it, and the other half was just like, what is this? It's a Hideo Kojima game, so you know it was going to be unique. But Death Stranding took that to a whole new level. Instead of fast-paced action or combat-heavy gameplay, you're a delivery guy in a post-apocalyptic world. It's a game about walking, hiking, and, yes, carrying boxes. People were super confused by the whole concept, especially because the marketing was so mysterious. The trailers didn't really explain much. And when players realized they'd be spending a lot of time delivering packages across desolate landscapes, some were disappointed. It wasn't the action-packed game people expected from the creator of Metal Gear Solid. But here's where the game shines. Death Stranding isn't trying to be a traditional game. It's about the journey, the connections you make, and the feeling of isolation in a broken world. And if you get into that mindset, the game is really something special. It's strangely relaxing, even though it has some seriously intense moments. The way it handles the idea of connecting players, allowing you to help out others in the world by leaving equipment or building structures, was pretty innovative. It made the world feel shared, even though it's a single-player game. Sure, it's not for everyone. If you're looking for constant action, Death Stranding might not be your cup of tea, but if you're in the mood for something different, something that really takes its time to build atmosphere, it's a game that delivers a unique experience. Lords of the Fallen. Now here's a game that has an interesting story, but not in the way you'd expect. Because I'm talking about the story of how the game itself has been received. Lords of the Fallen is one of those games that came out swinging with big ideas, tried some bold moves, and got, well, a lot of hate for it. And honestly, most of it feels a bit unfair. This game came out in the shadow of Dark Souls. And, I mean, it's tough to go toe-to-toe with that. People immediately compared it to From Software's epic series, and fair enough, Lords of the Fallen definitely wears its inspiration on its sleeve. It's got that dark fantasy look, tough-as-nails combat, and a focus on dodging, blocking, and timing your attacks. But here's the thing. Just because it shares a genre doesn't mean it's trying to be a Dark Souls clone. And this is where I think a lot of players missed the point. Where Lords of the Fallen shines is in its own take on the action RPG formula. It doesn't try to be as brutally difficult as Dark Souls. Instead, it aims for more accessibility, which is honestly a great thing. It makes this style of game way more approachable for players who might be new to the genre or just don't have the time to get good through dozens of hours of trial and error. Lords of the Fallen balances challenge with a little more leniency, which is refreshing. The combat itself is actually really satisfying. It's chunky, and there's this real weight to every swing of your weapon. It doesn't have the razor-sharp precision of Dark Souls. Doom Eternal, a game that's just pure adrenaline. From the moment you start, it's like the game grabs you by the collar and throws you into this insane, demon-filled chaos. The pacing is so fast and relentless, it makes you feel like this unstoppable force. You're not just playing as the Doomslayer, you are the Doomslayer, and it's awesome. One thing I love about Doom Eternal is how it forces you to play aggressively. You can't just hide behind cover and pick off enemies from a distance like in other shooters. No way. You have to get in their faces, constantly moving, switching weapons, and using your chainsaw to keep your ammo up. It's this perfect mix of strategy and brutality. There's no time to breathe. And honestly, that's what makes it so much fun. Every fight feels like a frantic dance of destruction, and once you get the rhythm down, it's such a rush. The combat loop is where it really shines. You're always juggling resources, health, armor, ammo, and you get those by fighting. Need health? Glory kill a demon. Low on armor? Set enemies on fire with the flame belch. It's a constant back and forth, and it makes every encounter feel dynamic. You never just shoot your way through a room, you're managing the chaos, and that's what makes it so addicting. And the weapons, man, each one feels so satisfying. The shotgun, the plasma rifle, the BFG, it's all there, and it's all beefed up to feel more powerful than ever. Doom Eternal is an absolute must-play. It's intense, it's challenging, and it's just pure, unfiltered fun. Fallout 76. I know this game got quite a bit of heat when it first came out, but after all the updates and expansions, it's a totally different experience now. Trust me. Bethesda really put in the work here, and it shows. First off, if you're into Fallout for the whole post-apocalyptic vibe, Fallout 76 still nails that perfectly. You're out there exploring the ruins of West Virginia, which is way more beautiful than I expected in an end-of-the-world kind of way. The landscapes are huge and varied, with misty forests, eerie bogs, and even mountainous areas where you'll get a stunning view of the wasteland. Honestly, the setting is a character in itself. And yes, it's multiplayer, meaning you'll run into other players as you explore. But don't worry, it's not like some chaotic battle royale or anything. You can still choose to play mostly on your own, focus on your story quests, or even just wander around, soaking in the atmosphere. But having others around adds this cool element of unpredictability, like maybe you're all just hanging out around a campfire, or someone pops up to trade supplies. It makes the world feel more alive, which is pretty rare in the Fallout series. Speaking of camps, let's talk camp building, which might be one of my favorite parts of the game. You can set up your own little homestead anywhere in the wilderness, and then customize it however you want. I mean, some people have made full-on mansions out there, and I'm over here just trying to get my campfire going. It's like a mix of Fallout survival with Sims creativity. Star Wars Jedi Survivor. Now, this game was supposed to be a huge hit. It's a Star Wars game after all, and it's a sequel to Jedi Fallen Order, which everyone loved. But for some reason, Jedi Survivor didn't quite hit the same heights, at least not right away. Still, this is a game that's definitely better than its initial reception might suggest. When it launched, the game had a lot of bugs, especially on PC. People were reporting frame rate drops, crashes, and all sorts of technical problems. It was one of those situations where the game itself was great, but the technical hiccups held it back. And, in the world of gaming, nothing kills the hype faster than a buggy launch. But here's the thing, once you look past the technical stuff, which has mostly been patched up now, Jedi Survivor is an awesome game. It takes everything that made Fallen Order great and cranks it up a notch. The combat is even more fluid and fun, with new lightsaber stances that let you really customize how you play. Whether you want to go full-on double-bladed action or switch between blasters and sabers, the game gives you options, and it all feels so good. And the exploration. It's even better this time around. The planets in Jedi Survivor are bigger, more open, and filled with secrets to discover. The Metroidvania-style design is back, so you'll be unlocking new abilities and returning to areas to access previously locked-off sections. Jedi Survivor is a beautiful game. The environments are diverse and visually stunning. You definitely don't want to sleep on this one. Titanfall 2. If you haven't jumped into this game yet, you're in for a treat because it's one of those rare shooters that nails everything from movement to story. You're not just running and gunning here. Titanfall 2 turns you into a parkour expert with wall running, double jumping, and slides that let you weave through the battlefield like a pro. The controls are smooth, and once you get the hang of it, it's hard to go back to other games. The map designs are built around this movement too, encouraging you to think creatively about how to get from point A to point B. There's something so satisfying about stringing together a perfect series of moves to outmaneuver enemies, and every match feels like you're pulling off action movie stunts. And then there are the Titans. If you ever wanted to pilot a giant mech, Titanfall 2 makes that dream come true. The game balances your time between playing as a pilot, the fast, agile soldier, and then calling down your Titan, which adds this completely new layer to the gameplay. Titans are powerful, heavy-hitting, and give you this awesome sense of being a walking tank. But it's not just a button mash fest. Every Titan has unique abilities and weapons, so there's actually a good bit of strategy involved. One thing that really stands out in Titanfall 2 is the campaign. Now, I know campaigns in first-person shooters can sometimes feel like a warm-up for multiplayer, but here it's a full experience on its own. It's well-paced, exciting, and even throws in some surprises that keep things fresh. Sniper Elite Resistance. Set against the gritty backdrop of World War II, it throws you into the chaos of an occupied territory where stealth and strategy are your best friends. The heart of the gameplay is sniping. But it's not just about lining up the perfect shot. It's about thinking ahead, reading the environment, and understanding how to use it to your advantage. The maps are vast and filled with opportunities for creative problem solving. Whether it's setting up traps or finding hidden vantage points, the game rewards exploration and clever thinking. It's the kind of game where you feel like every choice matters and every shot counts. One of the standout features is how much freedom it gives you. The game doesn't hold your hand or shove you down a single path. Instead, it drops you into these large, open areas and lets you figure out how to handle the mission. If you prefer sneaking around like a ghost, avoiding confrontation, the game fully supports that. If you want to go loud and make your presence known, that's an option too, though it's definitely more challenging. The balance between stealth and action keeps things exciting. The resistance element adds a unique twist. It's not just you against the enemy. There's a sense of being part of something bigger. You're not just completing objectives for personal gain, but striking a blow for a larger cause. This adds an extra layer of immersion and makes every small victory feel like it has a purpose. There's a strong emphasis on teamwork, even if you're playing solo. Uncharted 4. This is one of those games that grabs you from the very first moment. If you've played any of the previous Uncharted games, you know what to expect. Action, adventure, treasure hunts, and a lot of intense moments. But Uncharted 4 just hits differently. It feels like a perfect blend of everything we loved about the series, but with a more mature, reflective tone. Nathan Drake is back, and this time, he's facing his greatest challenge yet. What's really cool is that the game dives deeper into his personal life, showing a side of Nathan we don't usually see. He's older, more settled, and you can tell he's trying to move on from his treasure hunting days. But of course, things don't stay quiet for long. The game does a great job of building up that tension between wanting to leave the past behind and being pulled back in. It's something that feels relatable, even if we're not all globe-trotting adventurers. The visuals in this game are absolutely stunning. Whether you're scaling cliffs in Scotland or exploring ancient ruins in Madagascar, everything looks so incredibly detailed. Sometimes, I would just stop for a moment to take in the scenery, which is something I don't usually do in action games. The environments feel alive, and they draw you into the story in a way that makes it feel like you're watching a movie, but also in control of the action. Speaking of the action, Uncharted 4 nails the gameplay. The combat, the platforming, and even the puzzle solving all feel smooth and satisfying. Avowed. If you've ever wished to dive headfirst into a world where magic feels tangible, choices truly matter, and exploration is practically begging you to get lost in it, this game is exactly what you're looking for. Now, here's the thing about Avowed. It's set in the same universe as Obsidian's Pillars of Eternity series, but don't let that scare you if you've never touched those games before. You don't need prior knowledge to jump in and enjoy what Avowed has to offer. Think of it as a new doorway into this rich world, where you're given the freedom to shape your adventure the way you want. It's welcoming, accessible, and absolutely bursting with lore for those who want to dig deeper. One of the coolest parts of Avowed is how it handles magic and combat. This isn't just about flinging fireballs or swinging swords. You feel a genuine sense of connection to your arsenal. Whether you're crafting devastating spell combinations or making use of more traditional weaponry, the game makes every action feel purposeful. It's all about giving you tools to tackle challenges your way. You want to go in like a one-person army, prefer something sneakier or more methodical. That's on the table too. The game doesn't just hand you decisions, it throws you into situations that make you think. You're not just clicking dialogue options, you're shaping relationships, influencing factions, and, in many cases, questioning your own moral compass. It's like the game is daring you to leave your mark on its world. Exploration is another huge win here. Crash Bandicoot 4. This game is a wild ride that combines classic Crash nostalgia with fresh, modern twists that feel like a love letter to longtime fans and a great entry point for newcomers. It's a bit of a crazy platformer, full of vibrant, chaotic worlds, tricky jumps, and the kind of fun challenge that makes you feel like a gaming hero when you finally nail it. Now, if you've played the old-school Crash games, you know that platforming here isn't a walk in the park, and Crash 4 definitely stays true to that. It's challenging, sometimes rage-inducing, but in the best possible way. There's this huge sense of satisfaction when you master those jumps, dodge obstacles, and make it to the end of a level. It's like the game is constantly daring you to just try it one more time. And hey, if you're someone who loves going for 100% completion, this game has you covered with tons of collectibles, hidden gems, and alternate paths. One of the coolest things about Crash 4 is the introduction of the Quantum Mask. These are special masks you can collect that each give you a unique ability, like slowing down time or flipping gravity. They really shake things up and make you think about platforming in a new way. Each mask adds a layer of strategy and keeps the gameplay fresh. So even if you're 10 or 20 levels in, there's always something new to discover. The masks really give Crash, and Coco, if you prefer to play as her, a fun, super-powered feel without making the game any less challenging. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. It takes everything Call of Duty is known for, fast-paced combat, intense firefights, and cranks it up to the max. This game isn't just about quick reflexes. It's about living out those high-stakes, cinematic moments that you'd normally only see in movies. Modern Warfare 2 is probably one of the most memorable campaigns in the whole Call of Duty series. What I love about the campaign is how well it balances action with quieter, suspenseful moments. It's not just non-stop explosions and chaos, though there's plenty of that. There are also these more thoughtful moments, where you have to rely on stealth, tactics, or just careful observation. It's a cool change of pace, and it makes those big, explosive moments hit even harder. Plus, the story is packed with memorable characters. You'll see some familiar faces like Soap and Captain Price, and the chemistry between them is fantastic. It's like being in an action movie, where every character has their own vibe, and you end up feeling genuinely invested in what happens to them. This campaign is really clever about mixing things up, so you're never doing the same thing twice. There's a little bit of everything. Stealth missions, full-blown shootouts, and even some sequences that almost feel like puzzles, where you have to think about how to use the environment to your advantage. Every mission has its own personality, and each one is designed to keep you engaged and constantly adapting to new situations. It's the kind of game where you never know what's coming next. Rise of the Tomb Raider. This game really took me by surprise in the best way possible. I mean, I knew going in it was going to be a solid game, but it actually exceeded my expectations on so many levels. First off, the environments are stunning. Every single location feels meticulously crafted, from the frozen Siberian mountains to the hidden tombs. You really feel like you're on this epic adventure with Lara. I found myself just stopping to take in the views at times, which isn't something I do often in action games. And speaking of action, the combat and stealth mechanics are incredibly satisfying. You get this perfect blend of intense firefights, sneaky takedowns, and crafting that just keeps you engaged throughout. There's this real sense of progression, too. By the end of the game, I felt like Lara had grown so much, not just as a character, but in terms of abilities. You can craft your own explosives, improve your gear, and upgrade your skills, so it feels like you're always evolving. The game nails that feeling of being alone in the wilderness. There were plenty of moments where I felt like Lara was up against impossible odds, but her resilience kept pushing her forward. There's something really inspiring about that. It's like you're constantly in survival mode, scavenging for resources, battling enemies, and fighting the elements. I have to say, the tombs themselves are a standout. They're optional, but trust me, they're worth exploring. Some of the puzzles had me scratching my head for a while, but that moment of solving them is so satisfying. Devil May Cry 5. This game is just pure action-packed insanity. From the second you start, it's all high-energy, over-the-top combat, with Dante, Nero, and V, just going off in their own badass ways. The combat is smooth as hell, and juggling demons in the air while pulling off combos? So satisfying. I mean, it makes you feel like you're some rockstar demon hunter every second you're playing. And can we talk about the characters for a second? Dante is, of course, the legend, and his attitude is just as cocky and hilarious as ever. But I gotta say, Nero's new arm mechanic is awesome. You can pull off so many different moves with his Devil Breakers, and it adds a whole new layer to the combat. I love how every arm has its own unique feel, whether you're blasting enemies or zipping around the battlefield. Then there's V. At first, I wasn't sure what to think of him, but his combat style is so unique. Controlling demons to do the fighting while you hang back? It's weird at first, but when you get the hang of it, it's pretty damn cool. He's like this mysterious, edgy dude, but in a fun way. The boss fights, though? Incredible. Every boss has this epic scale to it, and the game is great at making each fight feel intense without being frustrating. And the way the music kicks in when you're doing well? That's gotta be one of my favorite parts. The dynamic soundtrack literally gets better the more stylish you get, so it's like the game is rewarding you for being awesome. Honestly, DMC5 has some of the tightest, most fluid combat I've ever played in an action game. Marvel's Spider-Man 2. If you loved the first two games, get ready to have your mind blown, because this sequel takes everything up a notch. It's got all the web-swinging, action-packed, open-world goodness from the first game, but with some seriously awesome upgrades that make you feel even more like Spidey. First off, swinging through New York again? Man, I could do that for hours. The way they've refined the web-swinging mechanics is just so smooth. You're gliding through the city, flipping between skyscrapers, and pulling off crazy mid-air tricks. There's this new web glider thing that lets you cover so much ground so fast. It's like Spidey's flying, and it's the best feeling when you're cruising over Central Park or zipping through tight alleyways. It makes you feel unstoppable, and you'll never want to use fast travel. And this time, you get to switch between Peter and Miles, which is a game changer. Both of them have their own fighting styles and unique abilities, so it never feels repetitive. Peter's got his classic gadgets, but now he's also rocking those symbiote powers that just feel brutal. You can really feel the strength when he's using them. It's like he's just tearing through enemies. And then you've got Miles, who's all about that flashy Venom energy. I loved how you could seamlessly switch between them, depending on the mission or just how you wanted to play. The combat, too, has been seriously upgraded. It's fast, fluid, and makes you feel like you're choreographing these epic battles. Control. I remember starting it and thinking, okay, this looks interesting, but it just keeps getting weirder in the best possible way. You play as Jesse Faden, who walks into this super-secret government building called the Federal Bureau of Control, and from there, things get strange. The whole game is set inside this massive, brutalist-style building called the Oldest House, and it's full of supernatural events, shifting walls, floating people. You've got this crazy service weapon that shifts between different forms, like a pistol that can turn into a shotgun or a sniper rifle. And then there's the telekinesis. Throwing objects at enemies with your mind never gets old. I remember picking up desks, chunks of concrete, even explosive canisters, and just launching them at enemies. It's so satisfying. And as you level up, you get more abilities like levitating, creating shields, and even mind-controlling enemies. It makes every battle feel dynamic because you've got all these powers to mess around with. The game also nails the whole mind-bending thing. The environments constantly shift and change. There's this one part, the ashtray maze, that had me completely blown away. It's like this surreal, almost psychedelic level where the walls and floors are shifting, and you're just flying through it, blasting enemies, while this killer rock soundtrack plays. So yeah, Control is one of those games that feels totally unique. It's got this perfect mix of supernatural weirdness, awesome combat, and a mystery that keeps pulling you deeper. Watch Dogs Legion. This game really took the whole open-world hacking thing to another level. The first thing that hit me was the setting, London. And not just any version of London, but this near-future dystopian London where everything is under heavy surveillance, and the government is basically a dictatorship. The way they captured the city, though, it's spot on. From Big Ben to Camden Market, every corner of London feels alive, and it's just cool to explore this iconic city in a way you've never seen before. But the real hook for Legion? It's got to be that play as anyone system. Like, literally anyone you see walking down the street, you can recruit into your squad. I remember at first I thought, okay, but surely this is just a gimmick, right? Nope. You actually build a team of characters, and each one has their own backstory, abilities, and quirks. I had this old lady on my team. Seriously, a grandma. And she was walking around, slow as anything, but she had some tech skills that were unbeatable. There's just something hilarious about seeing her take down an enemy in the most casual way possible. And that's what's fun about it. Everyone you recruit adds something different to your team, and it makes you think about how you approach missions. You could be rolling with a construction worker who can call in a cargo drone to fly over buildings, or a spy with a silenced pistol and a fancy sports car. And of course, Legion is all about that hacking life. You're controlling drones, hijacking cars, hacking cameras, all with a few button presses. Stray. When I first saw this game, I thought it was just going to be a charming little game where you play as a cat, exploring a futuristic city. But as I spent more time with it, I discovered it's so much more than that. It's like stepping into an emotional adventure through the eyes of a stray cat navigating a post-apocalyptic world. First off, being a cat in a video game feels surprisingly freeing. There's something deeply satisfying about hopping across rooftops, squeezing through tight spaces, and knocking over random objects just for the fun of it. The game nails the physicality of a cat. Every move feels so fluid and lifelike. It makes you think about how the world looks from their perspective, so close to the ground, yet always agile and in control. The world building in Stray is amazing. It's this blend of cyberpunk and decay, full of neon lights and towering buildings, but also a deep sense of isolation. The city itself feels alive, not in the way you'd expect, but more like it's holding its breath. You meet these small robots along the way, and they're oddly human in their interactions with you, despite being machines. They add a lot of heart to the game. There's a sense of community among them, and you can't help but feel drawn into their lives. The story unravels slowly, but it's layered with meaning. It touches on themes of companionship, survival, and hope in a broken world. The bond you develop with the small drone B-12 is touching in a way I didn't expect. It's funny how a game about a cat, without any dialogue from the main character, can be this emotional. No Man's Sky, one of the most controversial video game redemption stories out there. When this game first launched, it got slammed hard, like really hard. People were furious because they felt like they were promised the universe, literally, and what they got didn't live up to all the hype. You know how it is when a game gets hyped beyond belief, right? Expectations just go through the roof. The biggest issues at launch were things like missing features, limited multiplayer options, and overall a lack of the promised living, breathing universe that players thought they'd get. It was a huge deal at the time. Everyone was like, where are the massive space battles? Where's all the depth? Players felt misled, and it led to some pretty angry reviews. No Man's Sky became the poster child for overpromised and underdelivered games. But here's the crazy part. Instead of throwing in the towel, the developers at Hello Games just kept working on it. They didn't give up. And over time, they transformed the game into something truly special. Seriously, the updates have been absolutely massive. They kept adding the features players were hoping for, like base building, expanded multiplayer, better exploration mechanics, and more dynamic planets. Now, it's packed with content, and it's a totally different experience from what people saw at launch. It's honestly one of the most positive turnarounds in gaming. It went from being the game everyone loved to hate, to becoming a beloved space exploration game with a really dedicated fanbase. Monster Hunter World, a game that's all about epic hunts, incredible creatures, and just a whole lot of fun. If you've ever wanted to feel like the ultimate hunter, taking down massive, fantastical beasts with a giant sword, or hammer, or bow, or even a bagpipe, then this game is calling your name. And trust me, once you start, it's hard to put down. The combat in Monster Hunter World is intense, but in the best way possible. You've got so many weapons to choose from, each with its own feel and playstyle. There's something for everyone. Whether you want to get up close and personal with a giant sword, keep your distance with a bow, or support your friends with a hunting horn, it's all there. Each weapon has its own learning curve, but mastering one feels incredibly rewarding. And the game doesn't rush you. You can spend hours just getting comfortable with different weapons and finding out which one really clicks for you. The best part about hunting, though, is that it's not just a straightforward swing till it drops kind of deal. You've got to pay attention to the monster's movements, study its behavior, and figure out when it's vulnerable. Every hunt is like a puzzle, and it's up to you to figure out how to take down each monster. It's challenging, but never frustrating, and every victory feels earned. You'll find yourself thinking, okay, maybe just one more hunt, over and over again. The monsters themselves are really the stars here. Each one is so unique, with its own behaviors, attack patterns, and quirks. Outer Wilds. This game is all about exploring the unknown, and it really leans into that feeling of pure discovery. You're a new astronaut, part of this tiny space program from a small, cozy alien race, and you're launched out into space with nothing but your ship and a lot of questions. And I mean a lot of questions. What's so cool about Outer Wilds is that it doesn't handhold or push you in any specific direction. You have this whole solar system to explore, and every single planet is like its own character. Each place is unique, with strange environments, hidden stories, and mysteries that just pull you in. You land somewhere, start exploring, and immediately find yourself getting wrapped up in something unexpected. The sense of wonder in this game is unreal. I mean, you'll be cruising along and suddenly you're uncovering secrets that are far bigger than you'd expect. There's something magical about wandering into these ancient ruins or discovering strange technologies from a long-lost civilization. And as you piece things together, you start to understand that every single mystery is connected, which is honestly so satisfying. One of my favorite things is how much Outer Wilds makes you feel like a real explorer. There's no combat or big flashy objectives. It's all about curiosity. Every time you figure something out, it feels like a little victory, and the game respects that you're smart enough to connect the dots on your own. Another thing is the time loop. It's such a unique mechanic that gives the game this sense of urgency, but without being punishing. The Evil Within 2. If you've played the first one, you know it's already got that creepy, nightmarish vibe, but this sequel, it takes things to a whole new level. How it blends open-world elements with that tight, survival horror tension. You've got more freedom to explore this time, but it never feels too safe. Even in the open areas, there's this constant sense of dread, like something could jump out at you at any moment. And trust me, the game knows how to play with your nerves. The enemies in this game are wild. Some of the creature designs are just pure nightmare fuel, like that multi-limbed thing guardian. Still gives me the creeps just thinking about it. And don't even get me started on the bosses. Every encounter feels intense and nerve-wracking, especially since resources are still pretty scarce. You've got to be smart about when to fight and when to sneak around. The open areas give you more options for how to approach situations, which I really liked. Sometimes it felt satisfying to sneak by enemies unnoticed, and other times you'd have no choice but to go guns blazing. The game forces you to be adaptable. The story is solid too. It's got that psychological horror aspect that really messes with your head, but it also wraps up a lot of the loose ends from the first game in a satisfying way. And I've got to say, there are some twists in there that genuinely shocked me. It's not just about the scares. It's a good narrative experience too. And of course, the crafting system is back, so you can make your own ammo and gear. Forza Motorsport. This isn't a game that casually asks you to win. It challenges you to learn every curve, every braking point, and every opportunity to overtake with precision. At its core, Forza Motorsport is a celebration of cars, competition, and the sheer joy of pushing limits. This is where car enthusiasts and racing fans unite, exploring an intricate world where every vehicle feels like it has its own story to tell. It's not just a race to the finish line. It's about understanding your car, the track, and the craft. There's a kind of magic in how the game translates the language of motorsport into an experience that feels approachable yet endlessly deep. The driving physics are a standout feature here. Forza Motorsport strikes a perfect balance between realism and accessibility, creating a playground where beginners can learn and veterans can refine their skills. Each car handles differently, and you can feel the difference when you switch from a nimble hatchback to a roaring supercar. Car customization is where the game really lets you unleash your creativity. This isn't just about slapping on a new coat of paint or adding a flashy decal. It's a deeply satisfying process where you can tweak everything from the aerodynamics to the engine setup. Forza Motorsport doesn't treat cars like mere tools. They're your partners on the track, and you have full control over how they evolve. The variety of tracks is another area where this game shines. Far Cry Primal. If you've played other Far Cry games, you might be expecting guns, explosions, and chaotic mayhem, right? Well, throw all of that out the window because this time, we're stepping way back in time, like 10,000 years back. Instead of modern weaponry and cars, you're rocking spears, bows, and a few other prehistoric tools that make you feel like a true Stone Age warrior. And honestly, it's such a refreshing change. There's something incredibly satisfying about hunting with a bow you crafted yourself, or sneaking through tall grass with a spear in hand, ready to take down a woolly mammoth. You feel connected to the land in a way that's hard to describe. You've got lush forests, snow-capped mountains, and rivers that glimmer in the sunlight. And it's alive with creatures you'd expect in the Stone Age. Saber-toothed tigers, mammoths, bears, you name it, it's probably roaming around. One of the coolest parts of the game is the beast taming. Yes, you can actually tame animals. Imagine being followed by your very own saber-toothed tiger, or having a giant bear at your side, ready to wreck anything that crosses your path. It's as awesome as it sounds. The game lets you bond with these creatures, and they're not just tools. They feel like companions. Honestly, it's kind of heartbreaking if you lose one in battle. What I love about Far Cry Primal is how it makes survival feel primal. You're not just running and gunning. You're scavenging, crafting, and fighting for every inch of progress. Spec Ops: The Line. It's one of those games that messes with your expectations in the best way. I remember going into it thinking, oh, just another military shooter, right? At first glance, it looks like your standard third-person cover shooter. You're leading a squad, you've got your guns, sandstorms everywhere because it's set in Dubai, and it all seems pretty straightforward, but as you dig deeper, that's where things start to unravel. The story pulls you in directions you don't expect, and it really makes you question your choices, like seriously question them. What I loved about Spec Ops: The Line is how it uses the setting and the characters to play with your mind. You start feeling like the hero, but after certain missions you're like, wait, am I doing the right thing here? The game gets into some heavy stuff about the horrors of war and the consequences of your actions, which is something most shooters don't really touch on. It's more than just, go here, shoot this. There's a layer of guilt and responsibility that weighs on you by the end. Plus, the gameplay is solid. I mean, the shooting mechanics are great, the cover system works well, and the environmental destruction with the sandstorms is a cool twist. But really, the gameplay is just a vehicle for the narrative, and that's what elevates this game from being just another shooter to something special. You don't see a lot of games that really make you reflect on the violence in that way. Honestly, if you're into games that challenge you emotionally and mentally, while still delivering fun, engaging action, Spec Ops is a must. Wolfenstein: The New Order. It's an absolute blast of a game, and I mean that literally. It's one of those titles that grabs you from the very start with its intense action, gripping story, and just straight-up brutal combat. It's a reimagining of a classic series, but it manages to feel both modern and respectful to its roots. The game is set in an alternate history where the Nazis won World War II, and it's your job as BJ Blazkowicz to bring them down. It's got this perfect balance of being both over the top and really emotionally engaging. The gameplay, though, that's where Wolfenstein really shines. It's this perfect mix of old-school shooter mechanics with some modern twists. You've got dual-wielding guns, fast movement, and the ability to choose between stealth or going full Rambo in most situations. What's awesome is that the game gives you a ton of freedom in how you approach combat. You can sneak around, taking enemies out silently, or just run in, guns blazing, and leave a trail of destruction. Personally, I love switching between the two, depending on the situation. The pacing of the game is fantastic as well. You're constantly moving between different environments and situations. 1 minute, you're in a Nazi prison, trying to escape, and the next, you're on a mission to infiltrate a moon base. Yes, a moon base. The game really goes all out with its setting, and it's not afraid to get a little weird with the sci-fi elements. There's a ton of variety in the level design, and you never really know what the game's gonna throw at you next. The Last of Us. Oh man, where do I even begin? You know how some games just stick with you long after you've finished them? That's exactly what The Last of Us did for me. It's so emotionally charged. Like, I knew it was going to be intense, but it's even more than I expected. Joel and Ellie's relationship? It's not just a typical protect the girl storyline. They feel like real people with real flaws. I think that's what I loved most, how raw and human it all feels. You watch them grow together in this messed up world, and it's not always pretty, but it's real. Speaking of the world, the post-apocalyptic setting is both terrifying and beautiful at the same time. Naughty Dog nailed that feeling of dread when you're walking through those overgrown cities. It's eerie, especially with the sound design. The clickers? Man, every time I heard them, my heart rate went up. And they're not even the worst part. The humans in this game? Sometimes they're scarier than the infected. But honestly, it's the quieter moments that hit me the hardest. There's this one scene with Ellie in the giraffe sequence that made me just stop and take it in. In a world where everything's falling apart, there are still these tiny glimpses of beauty, you know? It makes you think about how people hold on to hope, even in the worst situations. Gameplay-wise, it's super tight. There's this constant balance of stealth, action, and scavenging. But what I appreciated most was how every encounter felt like it had stakes. You don't always have enough resources to just go guns blazing. Doom 4. This game brought back the old-school shooter in the best way possible, but still didn't take home the Game of the Year award. And I'm still scratching my head over that, because Doom was an absolute beast when it dropped. It was like ID Software said, let's show everyone how a real first-person shooter is done. First of all, Doom nailed the pacing. It was fast, chaotic, and brutal. Everything you want in a Doom game. They took that classic run-and-gun formula and cranked it up to 11. You're constantly moving, jumping, and tearing through demons like a one-man wrecking crew. The combat was a symphony of destruction, where stopping meant death. And let's not forget the glory kills, where you get rewarded for ripping apart demons up close in the most satisfying ways possible. The thing that made Doom stand out was how unapologetically old school it was. No cover mechanics, no reloading, just pure adrenaline-fueled action. It felt like a return to form for the genre. And in a sea of shooters that were leaning more toward tactical, slow-paced gameplay, Doom was like a wake-up call. It reminded everyone why the original Doom was such a phenomenon back in the day. Why it didn't win Game of the Year. One reason could be that it released in a pretty stacked year. 2016 had Overwatch taking a lot of the spotlight, and multiplayer shooters were all the rage. Doom, on the other hand, was a more solo-focused experience. Sure, it had a multiplayer mode, but that's not what people played it for. Metal Gear Solid V: The Phantom Pain. It's one of those experiences that really makes you feel like you're in control of a tactical open-world espionage operation. From the moment you start as Big Boss, or Venom Snake, if you want to get technical, you know you're in for something special. The way the game blends stealth, action, and freedom of choice is just next level. Let's start with the open world. Unlike previous Metal Gear games, which were more linear, the Phantom Pain drops you into these massive living environments. You've got Afghanistan's rocky, mountainous terrain, and the jungles of Africa, each filled with enemy bases, patrols, and wild animals. The thing is, the world isn't just a backdrop. It reacts to how you play. You can approach missions any way you want, whether it's going in guns blazing or sneaking in without anyone ever knowing you were there. And the best part? If you get caught, the game doesn't punish you too harshly. You can adapt, think on your feet, and still pull off the mission. That freedom keeps the tension high and the experience fresh every time. The stealth mechanics? They're just so well done. You've got all these tools at your disposal. Decoys, tranquilizer guns, night vision goggles, and you can customize your loadout for every mission. One of my favorite things to do is use the cardboard box, classic Metal Gear, to sneak around or surprise enemies. It's so ridiculous, but somehow always works. And Mother Base is such a cool feature, you're constantly building it up. Mafia 2. This game hits differently. It's got this classic, almost cinematic feel to it, like you're stepping into an old mobster movie. From the moment it starts, you're drawn into this gritty 1940s and 50s world where the cars are big, the suits are sharp, and everything's just dripping with atmosphere. The setting of Empire Bay feels alive, like you can almost smell the exhaust from the cars and hear the hum of jazz coming out of a diner as you pass by. But what really gets me about Mafia 2 is the story. You're following Vito Scaletta, this guy who's just trying to make a life for himself after returning home from World War II. And you feel for the guy. He's not some untouchable, over-the-top hero. He's just a regular dude who gets sucked into this whole criminal underworld. And it's not even glamorous. Mafia 2 makes it pretty clear that this life comes with heavy consequences. The missions are top-notch too. One minute you're robbing a jewelry store. The next you're in this intense shootout, ducking behind cars and trading gunfire. It's got this old-school classic gangster vibe. One thing I love is how Mafia 2 doesn't overdo the open-world stuff. It's not like you're getting sidetracked with a million random activities. The game keeps its focus tight on the story, which I appreciate. It feels like every mission matters, and you're always pushing forward to see what happens next. Even though it's been years since it came out, Mafia 2 still holds up. HELLBLADE 2. The first HELLBLADE was all about that raw, emotional journey and its deep dive into mental health. So when the sequel came out, a lot of people were expecting the same kind of intimate experience. And while it definitely delivers on atmosphere and emotion, not everyone's on board with some of the changes. One of the big things people are talking about is the shift towards more combat. In the first game, the fighting was kind of secondary to the story. It was there, but it wasn't the main focus. With HELLBLADE 2, they've definitely ramped up the action, and some fans aren't too happy about that. They wanted more of those quiet, introspective moments that made the first game stand out. But honestly, I think the combat adds a new layer of intensity. Sure, it's more frequent, but it's still tied to Senua's emotional journey, and it makes sense within the context of the story. Another thing that stirred up some controversy is whether the game leans too heavily into its cinematic elements. There's a lot of visual spectacle in HELLBLADE 2. The graphics are insane, and the world building is next level, but some players feel like it's trying to be more of a movie than a game, which has rubbed a few people the wrong way. I get that, but at the same time, this is what HELLBLADE is all about, immersing you in this visceral, haunting world. What I love, though, is how HELLBLADE 2 stays true to its roots. Despite all these changes, it still tackles heavy themes like trauma and mental illness, and it does it with a lot of care and respect. That alone makes it stand out in today's gaming landscape. And even with more combat. Watch Dogs 2. This one is so different from the first game, in a good way. I remember being kind of underwhelmed with the original Watch Dogs. Aiden Pierce, the protagonist, felt a bit too broody. And while the hacking mechanics were fun, the game just didn't have that spark. Watch Dogs 2, though, completely different vibe. First of all, Marcus Holloway, the main character, is such a breath of fresh air. He's charismatic, funny, and feels like a real person you'd want to hang out with. And his crew? The whole DedSec team is just this cool group of misfits, and they have this energy that's contagious. You can tell they actually care about what they're doing, which makes all those missions feel more personal. Speaking of missions, the open world in San Francisco is incredible. It's not just bigger than the original, but way more vibrant. You know how some open world games feel like they're just there to fill space? Not here. There's always something cool happening. Whether it's a random NPC having a funny conversation, or some kind of crazy car chase happening right down the street. And let's talk about the hacking for a second. This time around, it's not just about pressing a button to hack a camera. You can control cars, drones, even giant construction cranes. There were so many moments where I just sat back and thought, I can actually do this in a game? It feels so rewarding to get creative with it. Like, I once completed a mission without stepping foot inside the building. I hacked everything remotely using my drone and RC car. Stalker 2. So, you know how some games make you feel like you're surviving? Like, really surviving? That's Stalker 2 in a nutshell. The zone is the star of the show. It's haunting, it's dangerous, and it's unpredictable. What I love most is how it doesn't hold your hand. You're thrown into this place, and you just have to figure it out. It's like the game is saying, hey, good luck out there, buddy. And honestly, that's part of what makes it so satisfying. It's all about exploration, taking risks, and making decisions that can completely change your experience. If you've played the original Stalker games, you already know this isn't your typical shoot and loot affair. You're scavenging, crafting, and constantly managing your resources. And it feels real. Ammo isn't something you take for granted. Food and medical supplies, you'll cherish them like gold. And don't even get me started on the anomalies. These bizarre, deadly phenomena scattered across the zone add this layer of tension that keeps you on edge at all times. Every step you take feels like it matters. The NPCs you encounter in Stalker 2 are not just background noise. They feel like real people trying to survive, just like you. Some might help you, some might not. and figuring out who to trust is all part of the journey. If you love a good challenge, or if you just want to experience something truly unique, Stalker 2 needs to be on your radar. It's not just a sequel, it's a love letter to fans of the series and a bold step forward into a new generation of gaming. Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales. This game is just pure fun. I thought Insomniac nailed it with the first game, but playing as Miles? It's like they cranked up the cool factor. From the moment you start swinging through the city, you feel that difference in Miles' style compared to Peter. He'd got that younger, more energetic vibe, and the way he moves those little spins and tricks mid-swing just makes it so satisfying to swing around New York. The story got so much heart. You can really feel the weight on Miles' shoulders, trying to live up to Peter's legacy, while figuring out what kind of Spider-Man he wants to be. He's got this personal connection to Harlem, too, and that adds a really nice, grounded layer to everything. It's not just about saving the city. It's about protecting his community, his friends, his family. I felt way more connected to his journey because of that. Plus, the combat is so slick. Those Venom powers, absolute game changers. It never got old to just zap a group of enemies with a Venom punch and watch them go flying, and combining that with his stealth abilities made for some really fun, creative fights. I'd go from sneaking around, taking out enemies one by one, to just leaping into the fray and unleashing chaos with his electricity. The combat just flows so well, and it's super satisfying to pull off those combos. Even though it's a shorter game compared to the first one, I honestly didn't mind. It felt like the perfect length for Miles' story, and I loved every second of it. Assassin's Creed Shadows, a game that dives deep into the art of stealth, strategy, and precision, offering an experience that emphasizes the silent and calculated approach of an assassin. It's all about moving through the world unseen, using the environment to your advantage, and mastering the tools of the trade to outwit and outmaneuver your targets. The focus on stealth mechanics is unmistakable. Every move matters, whether you're sneaking through tight alleyways, blending into crowded streets, or scaling the heights to find the perfect vantage point. Shadow and light play a central role in how you navigate the world, and positioning yourself just right can mean the difference between a flawless mission and a chaotic escape. Combat is there when you need it, but the game thrives on rewarding players who can avoid it entirely. It's about using the tools at your disposal in creative ways, from distractions to precise strikes. The range of weapons and gadgets feels intentionally crafted to suit a variety of playstyles, letting you approach each mission with your own unique touch. The open-world design is tailored for exploration and discovery. The environments feel alive, filled with opportunities to uncover hidden paths, secret entrances, and shortcuts. Every corner of the map invites curiosity, rewarding those who take the time to observe and strategize their approach. Territories feel like puzzles, with multiple ways to infiltrate, escape, or neutralize threats. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. If you played Final Fantasy VII Remake, you're already familiar with the epic world and characters, but Rebirth just takes everything up a notch. Midgar was this dark, gritty industrial setting in Remake, but Rebirth opens things up. You get to see more of Gaia, explore lush forests, massive plains, and mysterious ruins that feel like they're hiding 1,000 secrets. And then, there's the combat. Oh boy, if you thought the battles in Remake were good, Rebirth steps it up. It's still that real-time, action-packed combat system, but everything feels smoother and more refined. Switching between characters mid-battle is seamless, and they each bring something totally unique to the table. Cloud's powerful sword slashes, Tifa's quick martial arts, Barrett's massive gun arm. Everyone has a role, and you get to experiment with strategies that make every encounter exciting. And the materia system is back, so you're constantly tweaking your setups, figuring out the best combos for each fight. Oh, and the bosses? Unreal. Square Enix did not hold back. Each boss feels like its own mini-movie, with incredible animations, massive attacks, and a level of intensity that keeps you on the edge of your seat. And it's not just about the challenge. Each boss battle feels personal, like you're part of something epic. And the summons, summoning Ifrit, Shiva, or one of the other iconic Final Fantasy summons, just feels so satisfying. They show up, wreck shop, and leave you thinking, yep, that's why I love Final Fantasy. The Surge 2. I feel like it doesn't get enough credit, but I had such a good time with it. If you're into that whole Souls-like experience, but with a sci-fi twist, this game is exactly what you need. It takes that punishing, tactical combat formula and throws it into this futuristic, dystopian world, which is a super cool setting for this kind of gameplay. The thing that really hooked me was the combat. It's brutal, but in the best way. You're not just hacking and slashing mindlessly. You actually have to target specific limbs, which adds a whole new layer of strategy. I loved figuring out which part of an enemy I wanted to focus on. Do I go for the unarmored areas for an easy kill? Or do I try to chop off a limb to get some sweet gear? Every fight felt like a puzzle, and I never got tired of that. Jericho City has this gritty industrial feel to it. The world building is solid. There's this mix of high-tech and complete chaos, and as you explore, you find out more about what went wrong in this messed-up future. The city itself is pretty open, with tons of shortcuts and hidden paths, which made exploring feel rewarding. Plus, the verticality of the levels was cool. You're not just walking through corridors. You're jumping, climbing, and finding secret areas that connect back in smart ways. It had that same feeling as Dark Souls, in how the world loops back on itself. The story is pretty interesting too. You're kind of dropped into this mess without much context, and as you play, you slowly piece together what happened in Jericho City. Helldivers 2. Now, this game is a follow-up to the original Helldivers, which had a strong cult following. It's all about cooperative, top-down, tactical shooting, but with a pretty unique twist. It's brutally difficult. However, Helldivers 2 has gotten some hate for being too punishing, or for having gameplay mechanics that can feel overwhelming, especially for new players. One of the biggest complaints is how unforgiving it can be. Friendly fire is always on, which means you can accidentally or not so accidentally kill your teammates during missions. And believe me, this happens a lot. It's a game that forces you to be super careful, and not everyone is down for that level of intensity. The steep learning curve and lack of hand-holding also rubbed some players the wrong way, especially those who were expecting something more casual. Another thing that got some pushback was the game's structure. Missions can feel repetitive after a while, and if you're playing solo, the game is an entirely different experience, and not always in a good way. It's built around cooperative play, so going in alone can make it feel more frustrating than fun. But here's the thing. If you're into tactical shooters and have a squad to play with, Helldivers 2 is an absolute blast. The chaos that comes from trying to coordinate with your teammates while dodging enemy fire and calling in reinforcements makes for some seriously intense moments. The variety of weapons, gear, and strategies you can use makes each mission feel dynamic, and the constant threat of messing up keeps the tension high. Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown. A game that feels like a love letter to the roots of the series while bringing something fresh and bold to the table. Movement feels like a dance, fluid, fast-paced, and incredibly rewarding when you string it all together. Sargon isn't just your run-of-the-mill protagonist. He's equipped with an arsenal of moves that make traversal and combat a treat. Whether you're wall running, dodging traps, or leaping across massive gaps, there's a rhythm to it that feels so satisfying. And then there's the combat. Let me tell you, it's not just about hacking and slashing your way through enemies. Every encounter demands strategy. You'll have to master dodges, parries, and combos to succeed. Enemies aren't pushovers. They're smart, they're tough, and they'll make you think on your feet. But that's part of the fun, right? When you finally take down a tricky foe after figuring out their patterns, it's such a rush. One thing that stands out about The Lost Crown is how it balances exploration and combat. The world is layered with secrets and challenges that encourage you to look beyond the obvious. It's not just about moving from point A to point B. It's about figuring out how to get there, what's hidden along the way, and how to overcome obstacles that aren't always straightforward. The game constantly rewards curiosity, and every time you uncover something new, it feels like a win. Speaking of obstacles, the puzzles in this game are no joke. They're clever, varied, and so satisfying to solve. The Witcher 3. It's one of those games that just sticks with you. I mean, where do you even start with a game like this? For me, it's the world, you know? Like, when you're roaming through those dense forests, or just riding Roach across a field at sunset, there's this vibe that's hard to describe. The world feels so alive, even if it's grim and full of monsters. And you know how in a lot of games, side quests are just filler? Not here. The Witcher 3's side quests feel just as important as the main story, if not sometimes more interesting. Like, you could be hunting down a werewolf one minute, and the next, you're getting involved in the political affairs of some random village. Every quest feels like it has its own little narrative arc. It's like playing through mini-stories, all packed into this huge world. One of my favorite things, though, is how the game handles monsters. It's not just about swinging your sword around. There's actual strategy involved. You read up on your target, learn its weaknesses, and prepare the right potions or oils before diving into battle. It really makes you feel like you're Geralt, this professional monster hunter who knows what he's doing. But it's not just about the scenery. The characters, man. You've got Ciri, Yennefer, Triss. They're so well written. Every time I made decisions in the game, I actually felt like they mattered. I mean, how often do you get that in games? Honestly, every time I play The Witcher 3, I catch something new. Mad Max. So, I recently had the chance to spend some time with Mad Max, and let me tell you, it's an experience that truly stands out. The game captures the raw, gritty essence of the Mad Max universe so well that it feels like you're right in the heart of that post-apocalyptic wasteland. One of the first things that hit me was the attention to detail in the environment. The desolate landscapes and towering sandstorms are crafted with such precision that they almost feel alive. It's like every corner of the world has a story to tell, and exploring it becomes an adventure in itself. Upgrading and customizing your car, the magnum opus, is an absolute blast. There's something incredibly satisfying about tearing through enemies with a fully upgraded, heavily armed vehicle. And the thrill of high-speed chases and explosive battles really keeps you on the edge of your seat. The narrative is another strong point. Max's journey, filled with intense personal struggles and high-stakes encounters, is engaging from start to finish. It's not just about surviving. It's about finding purpose in a world that's gone mad. The characters you meet along the way, each with their own quirks and backstories, add depth to the story. What's more, the game does a great job of balancing action with exploration. There's always something to discover, whether it's hidden loot, side quests, or just interesting details in the environment. It encourages you to take your time and really soak in the world around you. The combat mechanics are solid. Nier Automata, one of those games that didn't exactly explode onto the scene when it first launched, but ended up becoming a cult classic. If you've never played it, at first glance it might seem like just another action RPG. But this game, much more than that. It's one of those titles that, once you dive in, completely pulls you in with its depth themes and that emotional roller coaster of a story. But here's the thing. When it first came out, not a lot of people were talking about it. Sure, it had fans, but it didn't immediately blow up like some big AAA game. Part of that might be because the original was kind of niche and never really became a mainstream hit. So it had this uphill battle where people weren't sure if it was worth checking out. The game is weird. And I say that in the best possible way. It doesn't hold your hand, it doesn't give you a typical RPG experience, and the story can get really out there. You've got androids questioning the meaning of life, robots acting like humans, existential dread, and more than a few mind-bending plot twists. For some players, it was a little too philosophical. It's not afraid to get deep and ask big questions. And that can be off-putting if you're just looking for a straightforward action game. Then there's the whole multiple endings thing. It doesn't just have a single ending. It has like 26 of them. Now, most of those are joke endings, but to get the full story, you actually have to play through the game multiple times, seeing it from different perspectives. Some people love that. It's one of the game's strengths, but others didn't really want to replay the same sections to uncover the whole narrative. Rise, Son of Rome. You know, when I first fired up Rise, I wasn't entirely sure what to expect. I'd heard mixed things over the years, but it really surprised me in a lot of good ways. Right from the start, the visuals pulled me in. I mean, this game is stunning. The world of ancient Rome looks so alive, from the grand architecture to the battlefields dripping with atmosphere. It's one of those games where you can just stop and admire the scenery. But Rise isn't just about looking pretty. The combat, while simple, is incredibly satisfying. Yeah, it's not the most complex system out there, but once you get into the rhythm of sword swings, dodges, and finishing moves, it feels epic. There's a real sense of power behind each blow, and the slow-motion finishers, pure cinematic brilliance. It made me feel like a gladiator, right in the thick of battle. The story, too, deserves some praise. Marius Titus, the game's protagonist, has a journey that's as much about personal revenge as it is about the fate of Rome itself. The way the narrative unfolds keeps you invested. And let's not forget the voice acting. It's top-notch, really bringing the characters and drama to life. One of the coolest things about RISE is how it captures the brutal reality of Roman warfare. You can tell the developers paid attention to detail, especially in the way soldiers fought, and how battles were choreographed. There's something genuinely immersive about leading your troops through a formation, calling out orders, and fighting alongside them. Middle-earth: Shadow of War. It got a bit of a rough start, but honestly, deserved way more love than it got. Now, when it dropped back in 2017, the game had a lot of expectations riding on it because Shadow of Mordor was such a hit. And Shadow of War did a lot of things right, but there's no denying it also stirred up some serious controversy, which didn't help its case at launch. First, let's get the big elephant in the room out of the way: the microtransactions. Yep, that's where a lot of the initial hate came from. It was a single-player game, but Warner Bros. Thought, hey, let's toss in loot boxes and microtransactions. Gamers were not having it. Understandably, no one wants to feel like they're being nickeled and dimed in a story-driven experience. What's wild, though, is that they eventually removed the microtransactions completely. But by then, the damage had already been done. A lot of people had already written it off. And that's a real shame because, beyond all the controversy, Shadow of War had so much going for it. First off, that Nemesis system, still genius. I mean, creating rivalries with orcs who remember you, plot against you, or come back from the dead for revenge. It's such a unique mechanic that really makes every playthrough different. The world felt alive, chaotic, and personal, in a way most open-world games dream of achieving. Then, there's the scale of the game. They took what worked in Shadow of Mordor and just made it bigger. More fortresses to conquer, more regions to explore, and even more dynamic relationships with your followers and enemies. A Plague Tale: Requiem. It absolutely should have been in the running for Game of the Year, but didn't quite get the recognition it deserved. This sequel took everything great about A Plague Tale: Innocence and cranked it up to a whole new level. The story, the characters, the visuals, it was all so much more intense. And honestly, it hit harder than a lot of people expected. First off, the story in Requiem was a gut punch in the best way. Following Amicia and Hugo's journey through a world ravaged by the plague and the supernatural rat infestation, you could feel the stakes growing as you progressed. What really stood out was the emotional weight of the game. It wasn't just about survival. It was about family, loss, and the lengths you'd go to protect the ones you love. The character development for both Amicia and Hugo was top tier. And by the end, it was impossible not to be emotionally invested in their fate. The game also looked absolutely stunning. The environments were jaw-dropping, whether you were sneaking through crumbling ruins, lush countrysides, or the plague-infested streets. The attention to detail made the world feel alive. Well, as alive as a world overrun by millions of rats can feel. And speaking of the rats, Requiem took the swarming rat mechanic from the first game and made it even crazier. The way they used light and shadow to control and avoid the rats created some of the most tense, nail-biting moments in the game. Another thing to consider is that Requiem came out in 2022, which was a year dominated by games like Elden Ring and God of War Ragnarok. Lies of P. It's one of those games that takes a classic story and flips it into something totally unexpected. I mean, a dark, twisted version of Pinocchio? Who saw that coming? From the moment I started playing, I knew this wasn't going to be the fairy tale we all grew up with. Instead, it throws you into this grim, steampunk world where everything feels eerie and dangerous. The atmosphere is on point. There's this constant tension in the air, like you're never quite safe, even when you're just walking through a quiet alley. The game wears its inspirations on its sleeve, and if you've played Bloodborne or Dark Souls, you'll feel right at home here. The combat is that familiar, deliberate style, where every swing of your weapon matters, and timing is everything. But Lies of P adds its own twist, with the weapon customization system. You can mix and match blades and handles to create your own combos, which gives you a ton of freedom to experiment with different builds. It's honestly so satisfying when you find a combination that just clicks with your playstyle. The enemies are no joke. Each one feels like a real threat, and you can't just rush in and expect to button mash your way through. You've got to be patient, learn their patterns, and strike when the moment is right. And the bosses? They're some of the most intense encounters I've had in a while. Every time I thought I was getting the hang of things, a new boss would come along and completely wreck me. But in the best way. It's that feeling of frustration followed by pure joy when you finally take them down. If you're into challenging combat, Lies of P is definitely worth your time. Ghost of Tsushima. From the moment you start playing, it just feels like you're stepping into this beautifully crafted world. The first thing that really grabbed me was the landscape. The island of Tsushima is stunning, with these rolling hills, forests, and temples scattered all around. And the way the wind guides you instead of using a mini-map, that was such a cool touch. It makes you feel like you're part of the world, not just playing a game. The combat is another thing that I couldn't stop thinking about. It's so fluid and satisfying. At first, I was a bit nervous because samurai combat can be tricky, but the way it's designed here feels so intuitive. You switch between stances depending on who you're fighting, and it just flows so well. Every sword fight feels like it has weight. There were times when I would stop and challenge a group of enemies to a standoff, just because it felt so epic. You literally feel like a samurai. Speaking of feeling like a samurai, the story really pulls you in. It's all about Jin Sakai and his struggle between upholding the samurai code and doing what needs to be done to save his people. It gets you thinking, you know? Like, what would you do in his shoes? Would you stick to the rules or adapt to survive? The game really leans into that inner conflict, and I found myself getting attached to Jin and the other characters, especially his uncle. The emotional moments hit hard, and let's not forget the duels. Oh man, the duels. Some of the most intense moments in the game for sure. You face off against these really skilled enemies. Amnesia the Bunker. We all know Amnesia is famous for its psychological horror, but this time, it's different, more intense, more claustrophobic. You're stuck in this grimy World War I bunker, and it's basically pitch black most of the time. Just that alone is enough to make you feel tense. I found myself constantly worrying about running out of light. I don't know about you, but for me, that's one of the worst feelings in a horror game, when you hear something but can't see it and your light is flickering. Yeah, no thanks. Speaking of the light, the whole mechanic with the hand crank flashlight is brilliant. It's one of those simple things that amps up the dread. You're cranking that thing as fast as you can, praying the batteries don't die while you hear something creeping up behind you. I legit felt my heart rate spike a few times. It adds this layer of vulnerability, but it also gives you just enough control to not feel totally helpless. Just mostly helpless. The big difference in the bunker is how much freedom you have to explore. It's not as linear as the previous Amnesia games. You're given this bunker to explore at your own pace, which sounds nice, right? Except there's a monster roaming around that's hunting you the entire time. So, yeah, you're free to roam, but good luck trying to stay calm while something's lurking in the shadows. The bunker itself is like this living, breathing nightmare. It's got that eerie, abandoned vibe, but it's also full of details that make you feel like you're uncovering something dark. The atmosphere is thick with dread, everything from the sound design to the way light barely reaches down those narrow corridors. Metro Exodus. This game is something else. If you're into immersive worlds with deep storytelling, this one's going to grab you right from the start. I remember jumping in, and immediately I felt like I was actually there. Trudging through the post-apocalyptic Russian wasteland, feeling every bit of that bleak, yet oddly beautiful atmosphere. What's really cool about Metro Exodus is how it takes the series from the underground tunnels and opens it up to these massive open areas without losing that signature claustrophobic tension. You still get those tight, nerve-wracking moments where you're creeping through dark, creepy tunnels. But now, you also have these wide-open spaces that make you feel a sense of freedom and danger at the same time. There's something about walking through a desolate, snowy wasteland and then hearing the distant howl of a mutant that gets your heart racing. Artyom's journey is such an emotional one. He's not just trying to survive. He's out there searching for hope, for a place where humanity can rebuild. You can feel how much this means to him and his crew. That bond between them, especially with his wife Anna, really hit me. You're not just a lone wolf. You've got a family, a team that cares for each other. And that gives everything this extra layer of tension. You want to protect them, to keep them safe. You've got to constantly think about how you're using your resources. Do you craft more ammo? Or do you focus on a new gas mask filter because the radiation's about to kill you? That balance adds a lot of strategy to the game. Days Gone. I'll admit, when I first heard about it, I wasn't expecting too much, but once I started playing, I got hooked. It's one of those open-world games where you get so lost in the world that hours just fly by. And let's be real, who doesn't love a good post-apocalyptic story with zombies? Or I guess freakers in this case. The thing that stands out to me the most is the world itself. Oregon, but post-apocalyptic. It's both beautiful and terrifying at the same time. You're riding your bike through these gorgeous landscapes, like snow-capped mountains and dense forests, but you know danger is lurking around every corner. It's such a cool mix of peaceful and intense. I remember just cruising down the highway at sunset, only to get ambushed by a freaker horde or a pack of wolves out of nowhere. Speaking of the bike, Days Gone really makes it feel like your best friend. I know it sounds weird, but you're constantly upgrading it, maintaining it, and using it to get out of some really tight spots. Running out of gas in the middle of nowhere, with freakers closing in, is one of those moments where you're like, okay, this is serious. But when you've got your bike tuned up and ready to go, it's an absolute blast to just ride through the wilderness, wind in your hair, dodging obstacles and escaping enemies. And then there's Deacon. I didn't expect to get so attached to his story, but as the game went on, I really started to feel for the guy. The freaker hordes, though, insane. The first time you run into one, it's pure panic. I'm talking hundreds of freakers coming at you all at once, and you have to figure out how to take them down